Meow, good morning. Welcome to the PodKat. I'm coming to you from my pod. My name is Kat, and I am going to, right off the bat, introduce my beautiful guest who's sipping her tea. Morning, Rachie.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing a podcast interview from bed while sipping a cup of tea, so that's pretty much ideal.
Well, it's April 4th, Saturday, just so I give a time of reference. I always forget to do that. But would you like to tell us who you are and where you're coming to us from, other than your beautiful bed?
Yes, definitely. I guess the bed could be anywhere, huh? Yes, I am Rachel. I am located in Broomfield, Colorado, which is between Boulder and Denver. So, born and raised Coloradan, and I never left.
So what has become your new reality since the outbreak of the pandemic?
For me, a lot of it has just been like mental, emotional changes because I own my own company and a lot of my work is already done, not necessarily from home, but the kind of like metaphorical from home. So from wherever. A lot of times for me that has meant coffee shops or libraries, Union Station. Just for me, actually, my most productive is usually in like a hustly, bustly environment with a lot of other people. So day-to-day wise, it has looked like setting up a desk in my living room and having it be my workspace. But earlier than I did that, it just kind of hit me really, really hard emotionally. The company that I own is called Simple Switch, and we work with a lot of under-resourced communities that are just getting hit extremely hard right now. So not only worrying about, am I going to get sick? My best friend actually got coronavirus. She was one of the earliest ones that I've heard about. So watching her going through it was really hard. Also wondering, does that mean that I also have it, because I had seen her. Luckily I don't. We're 3 weeks past when I saw her, so all is well.
How is your friend doing now?
She's good. She's recovering. We do like a weekly game day, and she has like sat in but not been able to speak at the last few, and then more recently she spoke and gave a full update and was up and about her room. So I was thrilled to see, because they had a day where her and her husband had to drive her to the hospital, and were like really worried that she was going to die that day because she wasn't able to breathe, and they weren't sure what the hospital kind of overwhelm would be like. Luckily it had not hit at all, but yeah, she's doing much better now. And her husband almost assuredly has been exposed because he's been taking care of her 100% of the time, but he has had only mild, if any, symptoms, so we're glad for that.
Wow, gosh, I cannot imagine how scary that would be. I have friends and relatives who are nurses, and I know they were saying that they like literally wrote out their will, and they they made videos for their children, like, hey, if you didn't get to grow up with me, here's something from me. And I'm just like, I cannot even, like, I kind of thought that people were like being dramatic, and then it's not. It's so real and so serious.
Definitely.
So,
yeah, that was definitely me too. My boyfriend has kind of been ahead of the curve. He started sewing masks last week.
Wow.
For all his coworkers and friends, and I was like, well, that's like a lot to be doing. And then yesterday, both Trump and our governor recommended everyone be wearing cloth masks anytime they're outside. So, and he was really ahead of the curve earlier on too. He started, long before any of the social distancing thing was official, he started telling me, you shouldn't really be going climbing anymore. You shouldn't be, going to these gatherings anymore. I think it'd be better if you stayed home. And I was like, that's silly. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'll follow CDC recommendations, but I'm not, I'm not going to be crazy about it. And now I'm like, wow, he just knew.
What is your boyfriend's background? How come he's so wise?
Yeah, I don't know. He's an aircraft mechanic, so that doesn't really have much to do with why he's like interested in the spread of disease. But I think mostly his way of coping with stress is just learning as much as he can about it. So he, as soon as he heard the words coronavirus, he like went hard researching and figuring things out. He also follows a lot of like international politics, so I think that's part of it, is that he was watching what was happening in other countries before it.
Are you familiar with what his Enneagram number is?
He's a 2. He's like as 2-y as it gets.
Really? Okay. I was thinking about how I keep hearing that Enneagram 6s are like either already have a bunker, they're like so prepared, or they're like, oh my gosh, I meant to make a bunker. I think about it all the time, but
he is having a lot of Enneagram 6 behavior, but kind of his like first and foremost behavior is wanting to take care of his dad, who he lives with, and wanting, he won't come in my house because he doesn't want to be the one who spreads it to my parents. And so that's very true of him. Is like,
and making the masks for all the coworkers and stuff sounds like very giving.
Exactly. Yeah, he's like, I will make everybody masks. He originally was going to buy like a 400-pound drum of rubbing alcohol and mix it with like mass amounts of aloe or whatever. I'm sure his recipe was better than what I just said. But basically make huge amounts of hand sanitizer and like send them at cost to immunocompromised people who like weren't able to buy it at the store. Like that's been his reaction, is all these like huge grand gestures to help everybody. Which I think is very sweet.
Well, that's so quality. I want to ask you more about your company, but I want to make sure we talk one more minute about your friend who was sick. As far as, it sounds like you kind of already answered this, but how were you checking in on them? And you just said you did a game night, which sounds really incredible to still maintain normalcy.
Yeah, so actually she's part of a small group of women that I usually meet with weekly, and we are still meeting on Tuesday nights virtually through Zoom and just checking in with each other, and we have been. And then we do a Saturday, actually, once I'm done with this call, then I'll hop on another game day. For her specifically, because she did a really great job of keeping us updated with how she's feeling daily, and just being really vulnerable with us about how she was feeling emotionally, because it was really scary, obviously. But we were also able to chip in with us and then some other friends and coworkers of hers to pay some of the medical bills that they were facing, and then also just give her like a care package of things she loves and things that we know are special for her. So that helped me feel a little bit more like we were able to do something, because this is the kind of friend that if she was having a bad day normally, I would drive over there without asking. And so it felt surprising to realize, I can't go and I can't physically be there for her. So I was glad that to be a part of this group of women who really came together for her. And we've talked about the fact that, as scary as it is, a lot of us will likely get sick. And so we're like, okay, is this what we're going to do for everybody? Like, this is, it'll just be interesting to see what happens over the next few months.
You said it felt kind of paralyzing to not know how to be there for her, or not be able to physically be there for her.
Yeah, I think for me, that's one of the hardest things about coronavirus, is that normally when there is a tragedy going on, something scary, the first thing that comes to mind is like a really bad snow day, although that doesn't, it's not that scary. But if there's something that kind of stops life and things change, then our first reaction, at least for me, is to like go be with friends or go be with family. Like a lot of snuggling happens, let's be together to get through this. And this, you just can't do that for really great reasons. But I think that's been one of the hardest parts for me, even just coping on my own, like as far as supporting others, but also I just had like a really sad day the other day, realizing how much physical touch I'm not getting, that I usually am like a huge hugger, usually spending a lot of time with the people that I love physically. And I just was like demoralizing a little bit, it just feels a little defeating to not be able to do that. I know that it's for the best and I get it, but I think it's hard.
Totally. Well, I think you guys came up with some really like responsible but loving, wonderful ways to stay connected with this person. Being able to financially contribute is huge, because if you're in the hospital and you're so stressed about paying the bills, I imagine that's not good for your recovery if you're that worried about it. So being able to support financially is amazing. But I'm also grateful that your friend had a space in the hospital, because I know that as it goes on, it gets harder and harder for them to have room. So even though there's nothing good about it, at least with the timing, I'm so glad that your friend was able to get some care, and that
Me too,
before
absolutely.
it gets really crowded.
Yeah.
But
Yep, both my parents are over 65, and my dad is also in cancer treatment right now. Luckily it's a very different. It's not a like chemo. It's a hormonal treatment, and so it doesn't really mess with the immune system in the same way. But they're taking it really seriously, and so am I. So that's good, and we've really been quarantining. But it's scary thinking about that. And then my friend, who's 27 years old, if it affected her as seriously as it did. It's kind of scary thinking about what would happen to, say, my grandfather who's 94 and lives in a nursing home. Yeah. Or, I don't know, like I said, thinking about the under-resourced communities that are getting hit hard, both by stuff like losing their jobs, but also just the lack of privilege that they have to be socially distant. So...
Yeah, well, when a tragedy strikes one person, sometimes the community can kind of rally around them and raise supports and this and that. But when it's the kind of, like, this is such an unusual natural disaster because it's like, oh, well, you said, are we going to have to do this for all of us? As of yesterday, the fatality rate was 6% worldwide, which looks like it still is. We're over 1 million confirmed cases in the world. And I know a lot of people have been like, oh, stop focusing on that. Talk about the people who've recovered. And I'm like, yeah, that's incredible. But, like, if a shooter came in somewhere and there's 100 people and 6 of them die, you're not going to be like, yay, 94 made it. Like, thankfully. Totally. But if I think about my own friend group, if I know 100 people, which I think I do, like 6 of them, that's enormous. I mean, even one of them is enormous. And so it's like that number is really horrifying to me, but... And
also realizing that it's really twisted, because in some ways this is encouraging, and in some ways this is crazy disheartening. Knowing that likely my 100 people would probably not be the sample that's going to have those 6 people die, because of age, but more importantly because a lot of maybe barring the people that I met abroad.
I definitely want to ask about that.
A great deal of them could be at more risk. Like, I was having a good conversation with a friend from India and South Africa the other day about how their governments are handling it, and it's like, even worse than ours.
Well, I do want to come back to your company, but I did want to ask you about that.
We can talk about
whatever. Well, you're such an interesting person. I was like trying to make a list of like what I wanted to talk about, and I was like, oh, and she also did the world race. Like, it's just amazing. And you're also like so creative and crafty, as well as being very Enneagram 7, outgoing, social, etc.
Absolutely. I'm extremely Enneagram 7, which has been interesting with the coronavirus, because 7s are like very escapist, and I think I've matured a lot in this, and like learned to sit through counseling and through really amazing friends who encourage me to like sit with hard feelings. But man, are there a lot of hard feelings going around right now, and man, do I want to escape somewhere, and man, can I not.
Oh, yeah, I feel like you can relate to this more. My response, which has sounded like it's been your response, is like, let's go see the people. Disclaimer, I want to see the people, but I'm not. And then I talked to a friend who, one of my first podcasts, my friend Becca, talked about how she actually like is only bunkered down with one person but still needs her alone time. Like, she was like, yeah, we've had to work out a schedule where that person, my significant other, will go for a run and then I'll go for a run. And I was like, oh, private time? What? Like, it's so weird to me. But I was like, oh, I guess I could see where you do kind of need to be on your own at some point, even when you still are so happy to be with the one you love, like still needing some time away from that. And I was like, oh, does not compute. Like, that's so, it wasn't a thought to me that someone would need time away from other people. But I think that's the extroverted versus introverted thing, is not that you like people more than someone else. It's just that like being around people charges me up. Like, I feel more energized. Whereas I know a lot of people love being around people and then they need to recharge.
Definitely. Well, for me, I really have needed alone time as well. I live in a house of 8 people, so there's a bunch of us. And I've definitely needed alone time, but for different reasons, because I have found myself more charged up when I live with my parents, and so it's been really special to be able to spend some time with them and do various things, or hop on a Zoom call. But by alone time, I don't know, it's less of a charge up and more of just like a reset and having to sit with those feelings or needing to be escapist a little bit and watch some Netflix or things like that. So it's just interesting. Everyone's learning how to cope in a way that they've never had to before.
I talked a little bit about this with Alexis on our podcast, which was like she's been open about having panic attacks before. And so she's learned a lot of breathing techniques and grounding and calming strategies with a therapist. And I think a lot of people don't have that. So
absolutely.
Yeah, you're right, having to learn it right now. But I know there's a lot in place where you can do like therapy online or teletherapy and
my counselor has just moved all her. I've seen her since college, and she's fantastic. Her name's Kathy, and she's like one of my favorite people. She'll definitely be like invited to my wedding if I ever get married. But she's just moved all hers to phone calls, so like I'm really looking forward to Monday because I have a call with Kathy. But I am just like so pro counseling for everybody, especially now, but always.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think after this, I mean, if you already were in it, I could see where you would go online or through the phone. But if you weren't already doing therapy, some people may not be like feeling that connected with someone if they just met them on the phone. But I would think when it's safe to go back out, I think a lot of people will be like, wow, I need to learn some
I hope so.
ways to cope. Yes, I think there'll be, a big boom in that. But I want to ask you, went on the world race. So you were mentioning, people all over.
Yeah. I was really struck by a friend of mine was talking about Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, which I cannot recommend more highly.
Just read it, girl. It was incredible.
So good. But this was before I had read it, and she was kind of telling me about her experience reading it. And she said, Michelle's talking about how she's like laying in bed next to Barack and he like can't sleep, and she's thinking maybe he's mad at me or like, what's going on, what's stopping him from sleeping. And she asks him, and he's like just thinking about like and then I think it was like wealth disparity in the United States, like the way that these things are. And my friend was like, that's crazy, like who does that? And I was kind of like, well, me, I do. Like these are the kind of things I think about, and I think you're right. It's just because I have met people so drastically far along that spectrum. I was writing a bio for another podcast earlier today and wrote in it, because I've now traveled to 28 countries, which is wild, but I wrote it as I've made friends in 28 countries, and I think that's a more accurate way for me to experience or to express my travel experience. And so the same way that I'm talking to you about my friend who has coronavirus who lives down the street 10 minutes, I am also trying to check up as best as I can with people who I'm still very close with who are on 6 continents.
So for anyone who doesn't know, you went on the world race, which is...
I did. It's 11 countries in 11 months. We were doing all sorts of different mission and service work depending on the country. A lot of times we were living with the people that we were working with or serving. And then since then, that was 3 years ago, traveled quite a bit for Simple Switch. So going to visit our impact partners and make friends with entrepreneurs around the world who are just making incredible, impactful objects for you to buy, and learning their stories and why they're doing it and just what's motivating them. So I'm very lucky to have been able to do that. It's an incredible experience, and I do think it really changes your perspective. I think I get especially fired up about some of the like racist comments made around the virus as well. I haven't been to China, but I have a ton of Asian American friends as well as friends who live in Asia who just don't deserve any of the treatment that they've been getting recently.
Well, that's so crazy because like this is a problem that isn't caused by any enemy. So it's like, why are we trying to find an enemy?
Totally.
Especially,
people are like scapegoating it onto a human so that they can hate that human, and it's really saddening to see that's like the human response, It
is. Well, so as you've been talking to your friends globally, Have there been any surprises for you of the way countries are responding, or have you been impressed by any other country's response?
I think that the thing that surprised me the most is just how similar it is. Although, culturally they're doing things differently. So, for instance, my friend Shantae from South Africa was the most recent person I talked to, and she was concerned about me because she had seen news about how America wasn't taking it seriously, things like the South's response in the beaches and things like that. And so she was wondering what we were dealing with, and then I asked her, and it was just really similar, where it was like, hey, we are doing this lockdown, but in some areas people aren't taking it seriously. And the part that was really heartbreaking for her and I was that for them, one of the places that wasn't taking it very seriously is the township, which is kind of like the slum area near Cape Town, and that those people probably would be some of the most likely to be seriously affected because of their lack of wealth to handle it or hospital access. But they were the ones who weren't taking it very seriously because of what they were hearing kind of culturally and what they were hearing from government as well. So I think seeing how similar it is to what we're experiencing here was pretty surprising to me. Also, just watching a lot of my friends move around. So some of them were living abroad. I worked at a seminary in India, and so a lot of the students had gone home to be with their families during this time. I don't know, it's just so interesting seeing that it's a global thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's we really are truly all in this together, because usually it's I hear a news story about Guatemala and then I reach out to my friends in Guatemala to see how they're doing to support them. But right now it's all of us reaching out to support each other from across the world, and trying to help people that we know in Kenya get ready, because we know that they will be especially impacted if it hits them, but it hasn't really hit them yet, things like that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things when a cabin loses pressure on an airplane, you have to put your own mask on first and then help people around you. But you shouldn't be putting on your mask and then criticizing everyone else and being racist, because that's so unhelpful.
Absolutely. For sure. And I think I've also been a little bit heartbroken. I don't know, this has been a hard thing for me to grapple with, is that I saw something recently that said, this is a virus that ultimately is going to have been spread by the rich, right? Because it is spread by people who are traveling. Most of Colorado's cases are from people who came into Colorado to go skiing at somewhere like Aspen, which is, people who are doing that have some of the most, privilege and wealth in the United States or in the world. And the fact that it is spread by that demographic, but then going to disproportionately affect demographics who, would never have been able to be someone who's doing that is just so frustrating, that it can be brought and caused by someone, and then they can almost completely escape it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I had thought about how the people who are oh, it won't affect me, I'm healthy, I have a smoothie and vitamins every day, are the ones who are then going to bring it to people they might not even know are immunocompromised. And Kate Hewitt and I talked about that in our episode of being visibly healthy from the outside, but that there's a lot of silent sufferers who have compromised immune systems and things that make them more susceptible to this. So
chronic illness and things.
Well, I do want to finally ask you about your company. What does Simple Switch do?
Yes. So Simple Switch is here's my elevator pitch. Okay. Simple Switch is an online marketplace for, we say, positive impact purchasing and ethical shopping. So the really easy way to think about it is it's just like Amazon. You go online, you find what you need, you have it shipped to your door, but all of our products and our suppliers are environmentally or socially impactful. So some examples of that are this is a funny one to use right now, but it's always a good example, is our toilet paper company. They use 50% of their profits to build toilets in developing communities and then do some hygiene education around that. Or we have a jewelry company that is working with women who are coming out of sexual slavery to help give them some job training, whether that be in actual jewelry making or product photography or even computer skills, and help them build sustainable careers so that they're not having to rely on something like that if they don't want to.
So it's I could go to simpleswitch.com and I could browse around.
Yes, it's .org, but yes. And the reason that it's .org is because the .com costs like $50,000. So if any of the listeners want to donate $50,000, then I will buy the .com. Yeah, totally. For sure. I'm sure somebody will give me a call after this podcast.
Where can I sign the check? So simpleswitch.org, and then I could look around and say, hey, I needed, you said toilet paper or jewelry or, birthday presents for my wife. And then I could know happily that you had looked into the company and had checked out that they were ethical.
Yeah. And you'd be able to learn about their impact too. So then, say you did get something for Kim, when she's using it, someone says, oh, I love your journal. Say, well, we just have a sale on journals. Love your journal. She'd say, hey, thanks. It actually creates sustainable jobs for people in Haiti. So I love that part of it too. So you kind of get to love the item and also love the impact behind it.
So you created this company and you run it, boss.
Yeah.
Wow.
My business card says founder and CEO, which is a wild thing. I'm more used to it now, but I remember when I was getting my business cards made, I was like, this is crazy. Like, I can't put this on here. And people were like, why? It's literally your job.
So when this started happening, as far as pandemic and people having to work from home and such, it sounds like your company already is something that you can work from home. But did you have to think about if it was going to affect you financially?
Yes. A lot of things. So like I said early on, this hit me really heavily emotionally. I'm feeling a lot better now, and I've kind of come to terms with a lot of things. And like you said, taking on some better coping mechanisms. But early on, I mean, I'm sure this is happening to everyone listening, but we were just getting like hundreds of emails about companies closing down and, we're not open anymore and we're shutting down because of coronavirus. So started having thoughts of like, am I supposed to shut down? Like, is that the thing that we're doing? Is everyone just closed now? Realized talking to a lot of people, customers and our partners and just trusted family and friends, that Simple Switch is needed kind of more now than ever.
That's what I would think, that you guys would be super essential right now for people to get their things online.
Definitely. So actually our sales have gone up since this started. Part of that is because people know that they need things shipped to them. Part of it is that we've really leaned into trying to be the best resource we can during this time. So like we're hosting a sale of things that you might need during quarantine, things like pantry essential goods, like soups and bread mixes and all these things, or soaps and shampoo. I, for one, probably need to be reminded to wash my hair more often. But that's been really amazing to watch people step up. I think it's been actually like really surprising to me and delightful watching people have this greater awareness of what it means to support small business during this time. Everyone's like rallying more than I've ever seen consumers rally before. And so people know that by supporting Simple Switch, not only are they supporting, us as a small business ourselves, but also these impact partners we're working with. So they're supporting small businesses all over the world that are still making great impact. A lot of our companies have pivoted their impact to fight coronavirus during this time. We'll be releasing a blog about that. But I'm like the luckiest that these are the people that I work with. But I mean, even some of them have had to do layoffs because they count on a lot of brick and mortar sales that they aren't getting anymore. So I'm really glad that our sales can support them and, keep their companies moving during this time. So that hopefully they can come back even stronger when it's over.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't think of an easier way for people to make important global impact right now and support the communities that you said are going to be more affected by this than using Simple Switch, because sustainable
I think so too.
work for people who, as you mentioned, had some hardships. But it sounds like you're getting really awesome products as well. Like, I use journals, I wear jewelry, I have used toilet paper. So those are all actual things I would want to need.
For sure. And we have more than 3,000 products right now. So if there's something that you don't see, it's like good to just email me, and like chances are we can probably find that with an impactful company and get it on the site. So that's also fun for me, is that I just like being that in between for people.
Totally. And you said you have a podcast as well.
We do. It's just called the Simple Switch Podcast. Yeah, it's like my favorite part of my job. The podcast that we run, as well as getting to be on podcasts talking about Simple Switch, because I think it's just such a authentic way to explain what we do. So much easier than like a Facebook ad, and way more fun. Yeah, our podcast is twofold, focusing on the stories of our partners. How did this company start? Why do they exist? What are they doing? And then on the off episodes, it is focusing on more like topical things. So what is zero waste? What is a B Corp? How can I shop ethically while staying on a budget? Things like that.
Do you ever work with companies? So like I'm thinking about how wasteful restaurants are. And I was trying to think, like, do you ever work with any companies about getting them to be more zero waste? Or is it more personal consumers who are coming to your website?
Yeah, good question. The short answer is no, not us specifically, but I'm really lucky to be in a network of other entrepreneurs who are solving like more of those specific problems. So there's a really cool app. I highly recommend it for that exact thing that you mentioned. It's called Remark.eco, I think. Remark.eco. And you just have it on your phone, and if you notice that a restaurant is using poor environmental strategies, however that may look, you just shoot a text about it to this app, and then it formally sends them an email. And then the more people who do that kind of feedback is what has restaurants or other companies make that change. So although we are focusing on direct-to-consumer products, eventually I hope, and we would probably never, I mean, I guess never say never, but we probably would never focus on something like a restaurant, but we could focus on something like a Walmart, but that'll take scaling. So, the more you buy from us now, the more we can grow so that we can have that kind of impact on the larger corporations. But I would love to eventually have a say and be able to tell those companies, hey, we have these resources for you. It wouldn't be difficult for you to just change and become more environmentally friendly or more socially conscious, and kind of have a consulting arm. I would love to see that happen down the road. That's one of my, we say BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals.
I have LHAGs. I have little hairy, audacious goals right now, just to make myself some food every day. But I should think more large scale. I love the idea of that, which is to get ahead of the problem. So instead of saying, oh, well, now California is in a drought, I guess we should not automatically give water at restaurants, and then it was enforced, like you got fined if you gave water. And I was like, a little late, guys. Or like now it's illegal in California to give plastic straws to people without them requesting it at restaurants.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was an interesting switch because people were furious at me that I was being a bad waitress, that I hadn't given. They were like, excuse me, where's my straw? And then I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's the law, and we're supposed to be like really polite and just pass it off. But I was noticing people were like stopping tipping, like they were getting really mad about it. And I didn't want to I felt like sometimes I had to explain like, oh, here, please enjoy your straw. I just want to let you know that the law, we're trying to not automatically give straws. But I felt like people thought I was being like mouthy, so I would just be like, "Here you go." But I want people
to. If it were me, I probably would be mouthy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot your straw. I was worried about the turtles dying. My biggest annoyance is when I would go, "Oh yeah, it's we're trying to save those cute little turtles," and I'd give them a straw, and they'd go, "Oh thanks," and then they'd literally never use it. But like once it's been on their table, we can't reuse it. And so I was like, wait, so you asked for a straw and then got mad at me and then said you wanted one anyways and then never used it.
That's so frustrating. Because the straw thing, I also have heard a lot of amazing advocates for like disabilities needing those straws. Mm-hmm. And so I'm all for the, like, if you ask for it, you can have one. Like, that's, I think, an important caveat to this fight. But there's no reason that it needs to be automatic. Like, there just is no reason.
No. I mean, there are a lot of glasses that are heavy, and if I had arthritis problems or something, I could see where a straw is necessary. But it shouldn't be your first go-to, because a lot of people don't need straws unless you're wearing lipstick or the glass is heavy or a disability issue. But yeah, it's those sorts of things you can simply switch to a better way.
Right. Exactly.
Not automatically putting water on tables, this and that. So
yeah, definitely. And we hope that by buying with us and purchasing with us, that people will be just a little bit more. I think that every time you make a conscious decision like that, it kind of retrains your mind to make more conscious decisions like that in the future. So the way that that's shown up for me, I had this. I'm not usually a New Year's resolution person, or at least if I set them, they're like more metaphorical. It's more of like a grow more in this year, something like that. But in 2018, I decided everything, it was so random too. I wasn't even, I was like eco-friendly, but I wasn't nearly what I am now.
Yeah, you went hardcore about it. It was amazing.
I did. Anything that I couldn't recycle or compost, I had to keep. So I had like a trash bag. It was actually a reusable laundry sack, but in the corner of my room that was like full of my trash for the last 6 months. And just more than the actual what I was saving from the landfill, which was a lot. I reduced my waste by like more than 85%, which is crazy. But more than that, I felt like it retrained my mind to just everything I was touching to be like, what's the deal with this thing? How is it made? What kind of waste is it going to be? Should I take it? Do I even want it? So I hope that Simple Switch can be one of those little training moments in people's lives. Not only are they getting something that they absolutely adore, but it just has, a tiny little thing go off in the back of their head that's like, hey, I made a difference doing this, and I can do that all the time.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I remember you came to a party at my house, and I was like, oh, let me take your trash. And you were like, no, I'm taking this home because it's recyclable. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And it did, but it really creates waves, and there's the ripple effect of going, oh, well.
I forgot about that. That's so funny. That was a weird, the guy I was dating that year fondly nicknamed me Weird Trash Girl because that would happen to us so often.
No, I'm taking this with me. I was like, oh,
and waitresses would do that too. They'd be like, hey, can I take your plate? And I'd be like, no.
This is mine now.
Sorry, it's mine now. I'm going to take it home.
Yeah, but what I love about that is that you didn't go into the restaurant and go, everyone should be recycling. Like, you really set the example, and then when you notice that the weird trash lady is leaving with her trash, you go, hey, sup, friend? And then it inspires you more as opposed to beating everyone into the ground about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that Simple Switch does the same, It's just, I'm like never judging people for what they're doing. I would love to see people make better decisions, but it's not. It's just funny. People like see me as like a police of it now, which is just interesting because I've just never really done that before, but
you're the savior of the oceans. Well, all it took was I read one Time article magazine about Greta Thunberg, and I was like, the planet must be saved. I need to, because I travel a lot as well, and I take an airplane there, and I'm like, maybe I can hitchhike across America. Like, it really makes you rethink better ways to.
Even our carbon offsets, like that's been a big goal of mine. Well, LOL for 2020 travel. Which is nothing. Actually, I did go to South America this year, but just doing carbon offsets for that and making sure that, anytime I do need to take a plane, that I'm making sure to kind of like appease my impact in that. We do that with Simple Switch too. We carbon offset all our shipping, and actually we're plastic neutral now too, which means that every time plastic is made in our supply chain, we pay to offset that to make sure that that amount of plastic is like removed from the waste stream. I think it's the coolest thing ever. I'm like obsessed with it. It's kind of a new certification, and I think it's just a wonderful idea.
Yeah, there's so much outside of just using a reusable straw, but it's a good step. But like, even as everyone, I'm watching The Tiger King right now on Netflix with my wife. Kind of hate it, honestly, because I'm like, these poor animals. Like, I get the show's funny and it's extreme and it's dramatic and crazy, but I just like the animals are being abused, and it really upsets me. And I was talking to my sister about it, and my sister was like, well, that's how animals are treated in slaughterhouses. And I was like, oh yeah, I should be, but my sister's very like vegetarian. A lot of times she's vegan, and she thinks a lot more about like the ethical treatment of animals. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess I should care about the chickens and the cows as much as these big cats on the show.
Yeah, these tigers.
And so it's like, if this bothers you, maybe you should look into better places to get your meat from if you're going to continue to eat meat or go vegetarian. But
totally, yeah, for sure. I think that's been a journey kind of just started myself as I don't know, I've tried to be cognizant of figuring out how to find those better manufacturers and better things. I'm personally not vegetarian, but I definitely might be, just based on all the people I hang out with and like what they prioritize. It probably will happen eventually.
Well, there's a lot of deceptive marketing. Like, Well, it's funny with vegetarianism because like I really love portobello mushroom burgers, like just the portobello. And whenever you order one at like Shake Shack, they're like, "Did you know this has no meat?" And you're like, "Yeah, it says mushroom." And they're like, "Okay, we get a lot of complaints." And you're like, "Oh, it says mushroom." But I think about like companies that look like they're health food that really aren't. Or like we used a laundry detergent when we were home in Colorado, and I was like, wow, it smells so nice. And this bottle looks so like bare bones. It must be like really chemical free. And then I asked my mom about it, and she was like, oh no, that bottle's a liar. It looks like it looks chemical free, but she got really into it. She came and read us the label, and she was like, look at these things they snuck in here. And I was like, oh wow. So really sometimes it's deceptive.
Man, that's so frustrating. So that's a big reason that Simple Switch exists, is to help people kind of like steer clear of those kind of companies that are, we call it greenwashing, right? So like greenwashing is like you make it seem like you're eco-friendly, but it's really just marketing, right? The thing that's so frustrating to me is that the reason that people are greenwashing is because they realize that's what consumers want. And like, why would they not just do it instead of like creating a whole new marketing strategy around making it look like they're doing it? It's crazy to me.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know if it's maybe more cost effective to use bad stuff.
It is, but it doesn't have to be even. I mean, you just have to reprioritize, right? As with anything, they can make it happen. I don't know if for the same price, but it's just frustrating.
Well, I was laughing because I was thinking of the kids who are like really smart in high school and college who like cheat on the tests, and you're like, but you don't have to, but why? But like people who just like to get around the system, and you're like, or work within the thing and just pass it on your own. Anywho, well, I've certainly used up more than enough of your time, but it's been really interesting. I appreciate you.
Yeah, what a fun conversation.
Educating me on a simple way I can switch to being a better consumer and help the planet. And it kind of took my mind off the virus for a minute, but it also helps me to bring back to the fact that I can help support communities right now that might be really impacted by losing a lot of their income potentially. Well, did you have any recommendations of any fun or interesting books, movies, TV that you want to share with people?
You warned me about this and I forgot. I am just like loving everything Harry Potter right now. It is such a special world for me. It has been for, more than 15 years. I think right now we have watched all the movies. We like binged them all in a week, but I'm about to start the books again. I can't recommend that highly enough. I'm sure most people have already like experienced Harry Potter, but if you haven't, it's really great.
Kate just said the same thing. My episode that's coming out with Kate, she was like, I'm rereading all the Harry Potter. And I was like, I love that, of like going back to nostalgic comforts.
As far as things to watch, because I've sure been watching plenty, I am loving Little Fires Everywhere on Hulu right now. It's coming out episode by episode every week. It's Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon, both who I am just absolutely obsessed with as female role models and advocates for all sorts of amazing causes and really amazing executive producers. So I'm loving that.
My friend posted on Facebook, should I watch Little Fires Everywhere? And he like hashtagged it, and then the company responded to him and was like, we would love that. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was really cool. So
that is really cool. I love that. Yeah, it's from Hello Sunshine, which is Reese Witherspoon's production company, and I just adore everything they do. Actually, I've had multiple dreams about Reese Witherspoon partnering with me on Simple Switch.
You're manifesting it.
I'm obsessed with her, and I just really, really like the stuff that they advocate for. But with that being said, another show that I really, really loved, and the nice thing about this one is it's all out. So for Little Fires Everywhere, I'm like having to wait every week for a new episode. But the morning show, I also really, really liked. Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, and Steve Carell are like three of the main characters. It's a little bit heavier, so if you know that you're needing something, well, actually, Little Fires Everywhere is also heavy. If you know that you need something lighter, I wouldn't jump into this one right away, but it's all about the Me Too movement, and I just thought it was incredibly done, incredibly acted. I was an acting major in college, so whenever I see a show that I'm like, wow, that was like some impeccable acting, that's like usually what gets me in. I am not as much of an expert on the script part as you are, but I would be curious to hear your thoughts if you watch them. But
well, they both
really, really well done.
I've heard good things about them both. Yeah, I tend to gravitate to like sitcoms and comedy as my natural wheelhouse. You know, The Good Place, the Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Scrubs, those sorts of things.
How good is The Good Place?
Yeah, but then if someone recommends like Handmaid's Tale, like I'll finally look into it and then I'll be like blown away. But dramas are not my natural thing I'm drawn to unless it's really good and someone recommends it. But yeah,
totally.
Good Place was cute.
I feel like I'm almost like exactly the opposite of that, where dramas are what I tend to watch more, but when someone recommends a comedy, I like usually absolutely love it. I just don't seek them out myself. But oh man, Good Place was so good too, and it tackled big things as well. I mean, when you're watching Good Place, I'm like, this is why Simple Switch exists. Is like some of the episodes were thematically around how our small choices affect the world and like good and evil. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a very philosophy heavy show, but they do talk about how like it's impossible to be a 100% like objectively good person right now. Yeah, ethical person right now, because if you buy something and then it was, you know, made by someone in a sweatshop, are you contributing to that even if you didn't know about it? Yes.
Definitely.
And so, yeah, that is true.
For sure.
Well, I love you very much, and it was so nice to talk to you. Thank you for giving us so much of your time.
Absolutely. What a sweet thing to be able to catch up with you two. And yeah, if people have questions about things I said, you can reach me at hello@simpleswitch.org.
hello@simpleswitch.org. Beautiful. Well, I thank everyone for listening. It's always a joy to connect with my friends and to get to share that with other people and to hear how everyone's dealing. Okay, wait, sorry. I'm going to let you go, but I did hear something really cute and positive, and I wanted to make sure I brought it up in the podcast.
Okay.
My sister told me about this yesterday, where you can Google an animal. Most animals, I mean, there's a few where it didn't work, but you can Google an animal like, you know, octopus, and then Google says view in 3D, and you click on that on your phone, and then it pulls up your camera, and then there's like an octopus in your room, and you can like interact with it.
It's pictures of that. Maybe I'll do it right now.
So cute, but it is
so good.
Super precious. And like, my sister and I were playing around with it literally until 3 a.m. last night. Like, we were texting. We're separate, but we would text each other pictures when we found a new animal. And the scariest one, she told me to do the shark. And I was like, oh, okay. So I said shark, and then I waved around my camera, and I couldn't see it. And I was like, where is it? I was like crouching around my kitchen, like, where is the shark? And then I looked up, and it was above me. And I like almost screamed, but it was 3 a.m, and my wife is trying to sleep. And I was like, there's a virtual shark above me. But they're
gosh, that is so funny.
It's really cute.
I'm going to pull up a hippo in my room right now and hang out with it. I'm obsessed with hippos.
The octopus is amazing. The dog was the most lifelike. The horse cracked me up because it was enormous. Like, it did not fit in my room. And I was just like, good gracious.
That's awesome. Maybe I'll like pull up, because we have horses, and so maybe I'll pull up like a virtual horse and then put it like with the real horses.
Yeah, I was like petting a sea turtle. It was like when you're a little kid, you go to a 3D movie and you like reach for the screen. It was very heartwarming. So that's my positive thing I wanted to share this week. Okay, and with that, I will wrap it up. Thank you for being our guest today, Rachel. I adore you. I'll let you go ahead and have the final meow.
Meow.
Perfect.